Alrighty trainers, it's TaeganAdventures here bringing you another episode of Raid Royale. Now, this episode of Raid Royale is going to be talking about Articuno today. Well, Articuno is coming up in Tier 5 raid bosses in Pokemon Go over the next week. Starting when this video goes live, Articuno will be all over Tier 5 raids in Pokemon Go. So yeah, this video will just go over everything you need to know about Articuno in Tier 5 raids, especially considering the last time Articuno was in raids was about 2 years ago, I think. That was quite some time ago. So this video is going to present an updated raid counter guide for Articuno in Tier 5 raids. So starting off Raid Royale, as I always do, let's go over Articuno's typing and stats, and move pool as well. So Articuno doesn't have really good stats actually. Its selling point is its defense, which is base 236, which isn't really that good. It's definitely outclassed by some of the more defensive Pokemon such as Regice, such as Registeel. There are definitely more defensive legendaries out there. So naturally Articuno doesn't have the best Go Battle League performance, and its poor stats are kind of like, yeah, not that good. And another thorn in its side, Articuno doesn't have much coverage. Articuno only has 2 fast moves, both of them are Ice-type fast moves, Frost Breath and Ice Shard. In terms of its charge moves, 3 of its 4 available charge moves are Ice-type, Blizzard, Ice Beam and Icy Wind. Ice Beam is probably the best of Articuno's charge moves, but given its stats, Articuno wouldn't really do much damage with Ice Beam anyway. Its only non-Ice type move is Ancient Power, which doesn't really do that much considering the fact that it's not a stab move and it's only 70 base power compared to the 90 base power of Ice Beam. It's definitely not going to do that much in terms of damage, but it does cover for one of its weaknesses, namely its Fire type weakness. And speaking of weaknesses, let's quickly go over Articuno's typing and weaknesses. So Articuno is an Ice and Flying type, meaning it is weak to Rock, Steel, Fire, and Electric type moves, with the Rock type weakness being a double weakness. So first up on the counter list, we have Terrakion. Terrakion has amazing TDO and a very decent DPS, as well as the stats to back it up as well. 260 attack is definitely pretty high up there, along with Mewtwo. Mewtwo is base 300 attack, so you can only imagine how beastly base 260 attack is. Apart from the Terrakions, you can also choose from Tyranitar and Rhyperior, 2 of the best rock types that received rock type moves on Community Day. For Tyranitar, we have Smackdown and Stone Edge as its double rock moveset. For Rhyperior, you have 2 movesets to choose from: Smackdown and Rock Wrecker, the Community Day moveset, and Smackdown and Stone Edge, which does less in terms of both the DPS and the TDO, so definitely Rock Wrecker is the better charge move in this case. But I know Rock Wrecker is a Community Day exclusive move. Not everyone here has attended Rhyperior Community Day, so that's why I'm recommending both Rock Wrecker and Stone Edge. Even though Rock Wrecker is technically the more superior of the 2 charge moves, it's not as accessible as Stone Edge is currently, so yeah. Honorable mentions go out to Rampardos and Jigalith. Yes, I say Jigalith, not Gigalith. Both Rampardos and Jigalith have really good DPS here. Rampardos has a really powerful attack stat of 295, right up there, way higher than Terrakion's. It's a very beastly Pokemon, but Rampardos is held back by being a glass cannon. It has a really low base defense stat of 109, not the best defense stat in the world, so its only thing to write home about is that attack stat. If you're looking for something more tanky, Jigalith is the way to go, although it doesn't really have the most impressive of stats. 226 base attack and 201 base defense is well better than Rampardos' defense, but 226 base attack is just meh at best, especially when compared to Tyranitar, Terrakion, and Rhyperior. Now in the Steel type department, we have the Steel Spidey Boy himself, Metagross. Metagross has a really huge edge here in terms of its moveset, because Meteor Mash is by far the best Steel-type charge move in the game so far. That aside, Metagross has some of the best stats in Pokemon Go: 257 base attack and 228 base defense. Definitely fitting for a pseudo-legendary Pokemon here. Being a Steel-type, Metagross resists both of Articuno's stab typings. Ice, Flying, even Ancient Power from Articuno, all resisted by Steel types. And that's definitely one of the advantages of using a steel type against Articuno here in Pokemon Go. It's going to resist a lot of attacks being thrown at it, and that's why Metagross, as well as the other steel types, have very high TDO here. And speaking of other steel types, Excadrill is also a very good steel type. Although it has less defense than Metagross, Excadrill has a beastly attack stat, very good DPS, has Rock Slide as well. Rock Slide is especially effective on Articuno because of Articuno's double weakness to rock. Honorable mention to Sizzle here for being one of my favorites, as well as a generally badass Pokemon. Unfortunately, its DPS and TDO don't fare too well when compared to Excadrill or Metagross. That's why it's low on the list here. Moving on to the fire types. Now, by far the best fire type is a new boy on the block, Reshiram. Reshiram has some of the best stats for a fire type. Being a legendary Pokemon, a 275 base attack, that's pretty high, 211 base defense, as well as a 205 base HP stat. Definitely fits its title as a legendary Pokemon. Speaking of new boys on the block, we have two new boys, well, technically one new boy that has two different forms. Mega Charizards. Yes, Charizards. The two Mega Evolutions of Charizard. Mega Charizard X and Mega Charizard Y. Now, Mega Charizard Y has the better attack stat here, so naturally Mega Charizard Y has better DPS, but unfortunately Mega Charizard Y is double weak to rock. That's why, in my opinion, Mega Charizard X is slightly better in terms of its prowess, even though, yeah, technically Mega Charizard Y has the better DPS and TDO as well as the attack stats. Personally, I would use a Mega Charizard X on an Articuno raid. Although not as notable as its Ice-type moves, Articuno with Ancient Power is not something you should neglect. Honorable mention goes to Blaziken with its Community Day move of Blast Burn. Unfortunately, Mega Blaziken has not been released in Pokemon Go, so we just have to stick with regular Blaziken for now. I am pretty disappointed that Mega Blaziken is not released yet, but whatever. We gotta stick with it. It deserves a shout out being a extremely badass Pokemon, as well as being a trusty fire type for so long. Ever since Blaziken Community Day came around, Blast Burn Blaziken has been a huge blessing in the fire type department in Pokemon Go, so how could I not mention Blaziken at least? Although it's lacking in the DPS department, Heatran still pulls its own weight in terms of its TDO here. Very impressive TDO here, in fact. Heatran has the best TDO here of all the counters I have on my list. Fire Spin and Flamethrower is definitely your best dual fire type combo here in Pokemon Go. And yes, Heatran is a steel type, which means it has a lot of resistances, takes neutral damage from Ancient Power, takes resisted damage from flying and ice type attacks, so it is definitely a suitable candidate for a Articuno raid. Now, in terms of the electric type department, yeah, they're surprisingly lackluster for some reason or another, so I'm just gonna go over them pretty quickly here. Zekrom, Thundershock and Wild Charge, or Dragon Breath and Wild Charge. Zekrom's stats are pretty good. They're, in fact, identical to Reshiram's stats. So, if you really need a beastly electric type Pokemon, Zekrom is the one. Magnezone, a steel type. Lots of resistances, I've said that already in this video. And that's why Magnezone has better TDO than Zekrom. Because of its steel typing, it has much more durability in an Articuno raid in Pokemon Go. Raikou, another legendary that is outclassed by another legendary. And that legendary is Zekrom. Zapdos, well, same scenario here. A legendary that's outclassed by another legendary. Well, two other legendaries, Zekrom and Raikou. Yeah, its DPS isn't that great. TDO, meh. I mean, it's trash. Its TDO is much worse than Raikou or Magnezone or Zekrom's. Last but not least, we have Luxray here. Luxray with that Wild Charge is a pretty badass Pokemon, actually. Not gonna lie, 232 base attack is pretty decent on Luxray, but unfortunately it's just outclassed by so many other Pokemon here, Zekrom especially. Articuno, being an ice and flying type, will be weather boosted in snowy and windy weather. So if you live in an area with snowy or windy weather, and it is snowy/windy weather in-game, definitely try hunting for an Articuno if you want your weather boosted Articunos. Fortunately, Articuno is a pretty easy raid boss to take down. It only needs around 3 to 4 trainers to take down, with the optimum counters, optimum movesets powered up to the optimum level. Due to the pandemic, you're strongly discouraged from going out raiding in groups. If you have to, use a remote raid pass, wear your masks, social distance, and everything. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning of this video, Articuno doesn't really pose an offensive presence here in Pokemon Go, not even in PvP. Stay tuned for a Zapdos and potentially a Moltres raid guide, Zapdos raid guide, coming soon, next week. That brings me to the end of this video here. What else to say apart from this has been TaeganAdventures. You have just watched Raid Royale. See you in the next video.